In conversation with Annie Lynn. Annie Lynn grew up in the coastal suburb of Emmaus, PA, close to Allentown. From the young age of 6, she found a passion in music, starting with piano lessons that paved the way to a dual major in music education and piano performance in college. Her love for music didn't stop there. For nearly 2 decades, she led handbell and vocal choirs in churches and shared her knowledge through private piano lessons right from her home. Annick's personal life is as rich and harmonious as her professional one. She and her husband, who first crossed paths as kids at 12 and 13, took their time dancing through life's ups and downs before tying the knot a decade after their first meeting. Together, they've welcomed 3 wonderful children into their world, celebrating each addition with joy and moving through life stages as a tight knit unit. After years of creating memories in Macungie, Pennsylvania, they sought sunshine and warmth, moving to Florida. Now, they share their home with 2 adorable dogs, Mai and Milo, and relish the time spent with their children and their partners. Florida life suits Annie's well. She's one of those rare souls who thrive in the heat and humidity, finding joy in the simple pleasure of beach visit and the culinary adventure offered by Disney World theme parks. A story is a testament to following one's passion, cherishing family, and embracing the adventure that comes with change. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Annie Lynn. How are you doing, honey?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm doing very fine too. And I need to mention that you have such an amazing and beautiful story bio.
Thank you.
I love it, really. That's
Good.
quite amazing. Yeah. So, Annie, I want to first say that congratulations on the release of Beneath the Surface, which also, impressively to me, become a bestseller on a launch date, which I love to say. Wonderful congratulations on that as well again. Yeah, that's quite commendable and quite
Thank
impressive.
you.
Yeah. Now, I'd love to ask you, how does this book come about? What inspired you to write Beneath the Surface? Also, how do you come with your title?
Well, it wasn't a straight line from point A to point B. I decided to try my hand at writing,
Hmm.
and I was writing fiction and love stories. But
Oh.
every time I started writing, I was drawn to my own story. And I felt
Mm.
like I needed to tell my own story. And I started journaling as a kid and
Oh.
journaled and journaled and journaled every night. I'd write. And even as an adult, I still journaled. And
Oh.
so this book started out as a type of journal of my journey. And eventually I realized I needed to put that fiction desire to
Mm.
the side so I could tell my story and and let that out.
Wow.
Um, the the title actually for a very long time was not Beneath the Surface. It was called
Oh.
Loveless because I felt like I didn't have love. And
Mm.
so it was loveless. And then something clicked in me just before I sent my manuscript to the publisher.
Mm.
And I thought, you know what? This is more not about loveless, but what was going on underneath and telling the story of what you find in that
Mm.
um, it's not always what you see on the surface. It is beneath the surface. So
Absolutely. Wow.
I, I came up with this. And when I sent it to the publishers, I said, beneath the surface, a working title. But as they looked at it and read it, they said beneath the surface was going to stick, and
Wow.
that would be my title. Yes.
Wow. And that's such a beautiful cover, really. That's well
Yes.
beautiful too.
I I can't take too much credit for that. My publisher, G. Morgan Publishing, they are fantastic. And
Wow.
I I had the idea of an anchor at the bottom of the ocean.
Mm.
And so they drew up several different covers, and an anchor at the bottom of the ocean was one of them.
Wow.
And my children all happened to be over at our house right
Oh.
after they sent a sample of like four different covers. And each one of them, I said, don't talk to each other, but
Mm.
on your own, decide which cover you like best. And each one of them chose that one.
Wow.
And it was unanimous. And I said, okay, that's going to be the cover for Beneath the Surface.
That's beautiful, really. That's very amazing. That's quite
Mhm.
lovely. Thank you for sharing. And I love the sound of the making of the
Yeah.
title and also about the making of the book as well. Now,
Mhm.
for readers who haven't read the book yet and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect in terms of themes picking up beneath the surface?
There was trauma in my life
Hmm.
and abuse as a child.
Wow.
So this book tells that story, and it was very cathartic for me to write. But it is about overcoming that adversity and having hope for the future and resilience. Just because something bad happens, you
Hmm.
don't have to go down a long, terrible road. You
Hmm.
can turn around, take those hard times, and build it into your own strength
Hmm.
and come back to that and have hope for life.
Wow. Wow, that's quite amazing. It's quite lovely to get to know about the themes imbibed in the book. Thank you for
Mhm.
mentioning. And in the book as well, you mentioned overcoming various adversities. Which of these do you think was the most defining moment in your journey? Would you like to talk about that?
There were two times that I think really defined my life. The first time was when I told my husband about the abuse.
Oh.
We were married for 5 years before I could actually vocalize to him. I had never told anybody. And so the first time of trying to conquer, I told him, which led me down the path of deep depression. So,
Mm,
as much as it was actually a good thing, in a way, it made it a little bit more difficult for a while.
mm,
Um, but eventually, I grew from that. And then the next big step was 15, 20 years later when
mm.
we decided to move to Florida.
Oh.
We had already created an emotional boundary between myself and my children, my family,
Mm,
that a boundary between us and my family of origin. But now we moved far away and created that physical
mm.
line. And that was a big step for us when we moved to Florida. We didn't know anybody. It was
Oh.
us just going and taking on the world, taking on the sunshine,
Mm.
which was joyous. Um,
Wow.
but but those were two really big steps for me.
Wow. Wow. That's quite amazing. And I'm quite impressed with your little story, an
Yeah,
illustration of the adversity and defining moment in your journey. Thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And also, what is the most important thing you do to maintain mental health today, especially after such a tumultuous upbringing? Would you like to talk about that as well?
Yes, mental health to me is not one thing. It's a combination of
Mm,
many things.
absolutely.
And um, one thing that is important for me is sleep and staying on a regimented schedule of when I go to sleep at night and things I do to prepare to get there.
Mm,
Um, I I live on the mantra of the past is in the past.
mm,
Today is today. We live for today because we can't change what happened yesterday. It's already
absolutely.
happened. It's
Yeah.
done. So we live for today, have hope for tomorrow,
Mm,
and and hang on to that.
mm,
I try to carve out some me time. And now that my kids are older, they're all in their 20s,
mm.
I have a little bit more freedom in that me time.
Yeah,
And I'm also very careful with what I do on social media and
absolutely.
watching. If I feel like if you're surrounded by negativity and
Mm,
um, horrific stories, even if they're not true, but horrific stories on TV,
mm,
it all plays into your mental health and
mm,
who you are. And so I try to keep everything in my life as positive and
mm.
lighthearted as as I really can. Because if you take life too seriously,
Yeah.
ugh, you become a little dull.
Mm,
So I try to stay happy.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love your take on that, actually. I love your take on that. And that's quite amazing to mention. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Now, can you
You're
discuss a tradition and ritual you've established with your own family that means a
welcome.
lot to you? What advice would you give to someone who is struggling with familiar abuse?
Um, Traditions and rituals, they are full in my family life.
Mm,
From the time the kids were little, I always wanted them to have something to look forward to, something to have hope for.
mm,
And we found holidays in every month that we could celebrate in different ways.
interesting.
And even the traditional Christmas celebrations were always changed just a little bit. Um, when it would snow, one of the favorite things with our kids is we would get hot dogs and
Wow.
we would make s'mores. And if you don't know what a s'more is, it's a graham cracker with piece of chocolate and then a marshmallow that's been roasted over the fireplace with another graham cracker on top, and you eat it like a little sandwich. And we would build a tent in our family room, and
Mm,
the kids would roast their hot dogs and then eat them, and then they'd roast their marshmallows and make their s'mores.
wow.
And we started this when they were tiny, tiny toddlers, and they loved it so much
Mm, yeah.
that we continued all the way through. Before we moved, they were in their late teens. And still, when it would snow, our teenagers would be like, we have to get hot dogs. We have to get s'mores. And and now that we're in Florida, we don't have snow, so we can't do that, but we have hurricanes. So if there's a
Mm,
big hurricane coming, we have to make sure we have our hot dogs and our s'mores and get all of that ready. And it's something the kids have just carried with them throughout all the years. But every month. there is just something that we celebrate, that we do together,
That's
and it
beautiful.
just brings us closer as a family.
Mm. That's amazing, actually. I love hearing about that. I love hearing
Yeah,
about that. I really love hearing about that. That's quite fun. That's quite fun
yeah.
to discuss.
We did try to keep everything very fun.
Yeah, as we were speaking, I was catching the scenario and painting it in my head.
Yeah, yeah,
That was quite admirable.
yeah. Now you asked what advice I would give to someone struggling with
Yeah,
familial
right.
abuse. And,
Absolutely.
I have to say, I'm not a professional,
Mm,
but I've lived through it. And one thing I had to do was find a support network.
mm,
And we have friends, and we have what I mentioned in the book is chosen family. I learned that there, one thing I like to say is there is no such thing as an obligatory relationship.
mm,
You do not have to be friends with anyone. It's your choice. You don't have to say, oh, well, I have to like them because they're my neighbor
mm,
or because they're at the grocery store. You
mm.
choose who your friends are and
Absolutely.
who those people are that will surround you. And then we have all of our traditions that we have. Um, the other thing I liked is project happiness. You might
Mm,
be feeling sad inside, but to project happiness,
mm,
it comes back tenfold.
mm,
My children were always taught to say please and thank you. And then,
mm.
if you're out at the grocery store or out anywhere, just a smile to someone
Absolutely.
is beautiful. And it
Yeah.
makes you feel good inside because you're smiling, but it might touch someone else who might
Mm,
not be having a great day. And
mm,
then they think, wow, that person just smiled at me. That's that's amazing. And just those small acts of kindness. And I just believe in that and try to project that as much as I can. Um, and eating well. Now, I say eating well. This does not mean that chocolate cookies are not on the menu for me as soon as I'm done talking to you. Those are still very important, but, eating well, trying to stay healthy.
Yeah. That's good, amazing. Now you've taught me how to smile. Next time, actually, it's actually a very good thing. And I remember yesterday when I went to the grocery store I was so excited. And once you smile to someone, they return the smile back to you. And so that they might wonder, why is he smiling? It's a
Yeah,
very good thing to smile, to spread happiness. The world is full of ups and downs. It's a crazy world
yeah.
already. And people can be passing or having a bad day already, but the small gesture of this facial expression, the smile, communicates a whole lot of joy to people's hearts.
I had an appointment last week, and when I arrived, the person checking me in was just, had a scrunched up face, and I'm like, uh-oh. But my motto is kill them with kindness. And so I smiled at her and said, how's your day? And the more we spoke, the more her face lightened up and
Oh,
she was happier. And when I checked out and saw her again, I said, you have a good day and a good weekend. Thank you for your help today. And she was so happy she smiled back at me. And it was a positive thing. And I'm like, there you go. That's
you can
that's
see,
all it
right?
takes. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive, actually. I think it's something that we human beings should try to normalize. I mean, it's something we should try to make a part of our day-to-day activities, to smile regardless, to smile, spread happiness, because, we need it. We need it. We
Yeah,
need smile,
for sure.
a simple hug. It's all very necessary. Very
Yes.
necessary. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. I love the sound of it. Thank you. Yeah. Now, apart from Beneath the Surface, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on?
Beneath the Surface will be my very serious book.
Wow.
The next thing that I'm working on, or actually it's completed, we just need to get to the publishing stage.
Mm.
I have two children's books. The
Oh,
first one is co-authored with my youngest daughter.
wow.
She always wanted to be tucked in when it was bedtime. And then she would say, Mommy, can you tell me a story? She didn't want a book from her bookshelf. She wanted me to tell her a story.
Or a
And
story.
every time it was a princess story. And
Hmm.
it was all about what Princess Gigi did that day during her day. And I incorporated what she did, but made it kind of silly. And then Princess Gigi would always end up in her castle and she would go to sleep.
Hmm.
So we wrote a princess story.
Wow.
I wanted an educational part to it, so there are numbers and
Oh.
counting throughout the book. And then I thought, goodness, we have a princess story. We need a prince story too. So
Hmm.
I wrote a prince story, and it is the same type of thing, what the prince did that day, and but instead of numbers, it was
Hmm.
colors, and the colors that he sees and the colors of everything he does. And so it's geared for probably six and under, kids learning to count, kids learning their colors.
Wow.
Um, a very sweet, not very long bedtime story.
Hmm.
So those are in the works. I also have a fiction love story that I'm writing.
Interesting.
And I just started writing a funny book, and it's
Wow.
just funny stories that have come up in life that are very lighthearted. And when you read it, I hope you laugh all the way through.
That's actually amazing. You've got quite a lot of amazing works ongoing. Yeah, I hope that goes on successfully. The fiction love
Thank you. I
story
hope
and the
so.
children's story as well. They're quite
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I love the sound of it. And now I'd also like to ask you, Annie, what was one of the hardest lessons you had to learn that you've included in your book, Beneath the Surface? And also, you've incorporated many life lessons into your book. Which one do you live by every day?
One of the hardest lessons was something I kind of touched on already, that is family is a choice.
Hmm,
When I was growing up, I thought family was family, and that was die hard, and they would always be there for you and help you when you need it.
hmm,
But as I became an adult, I realized that's not necessarily true.
hmm,
And the lives we are given at birth aren't necessarily the lives we need to live forever. Your choice defines your legacy.
absolutely.
Yes.
Wow.
Um, and just confidence.
Hmm,
Have confidence. If you have just a little spark of confidence in you, those around you will help build that.
hmm,
Surround yourself with good people, and they will
absolutely.
help you build that confidence. You can't see, but I have sticky notes all around my computer right now, and
Hmm,
it's all positive affirmations that my friends have given me, and
wow.
my daughters, that I know I can look at, and if I feel like something in this interview goes a little south, which I haven't, but
Mm,
those affirmations are right there, and it helps just to boost that confidence.
absolutely. That's beautiful, actually. I love hearing about that. Confidence. We really do need it. It's very important in our day-to-day activities. I love hearing about that. Thank you. Thank you. That's an amazing, lesson to live by day. That's an
Yeah,
amazing one to incorporate.
yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Now, I'd also like to ask you, because I know that, every experience differs from one author to another. As a published author, what sort of advice do you have for other writers who are still struggling with publishing a book? What would you advise people in this category?
Number one, my publisher has been fantastic.
Yeah.
G. Morgan Publishing. And I just picked them out. And when I contacted them ever since they had my manuscript, things have just moved so smoothly. And
Wow.
they helped me so much to take what I had written and helped me turn it into this book. And
Wow.
they made me an author. And
Interesting.
it's just about taking that first step. Sit and try to write a little and see where it goes. And my book started as 5 pieces of paper, and that was
Hmm.
it. And
Wow.
it has grown, and I added to it, and then it went
Hmm.
to G. Morgan, and they just helped me so much. So find a great publisher, but I recommend G. Morgan, and just again that confidence. Have that confidence in yourself that you can do it
Yes, I
and
can do it.
you will be able to do it.
Yeah.
This is my first book, and now my head is so full of so many other ideas. And I carry a notebook with me all the time because I never know when something is going to strike, and I just scribble things down and get it into the computer later.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand. I can relate to the fact that after writing a book, a writer's head gets filled with so many other ideas, like so many ideas screaming in your head, write me, write me, write me, write me. I'm
Yes.
like, hold on a little while, hold on a little, let me find some times to breathe. I'll come back to you. You know, it's
Yeah,
it's a generous phrase, I think, because today I got an
yes.
idea just this evening, I think like 2 hours ago, I got an idea to write a book about hope
Yeah,
because that was inspired by a news that I heard of one of my friends committed suicide. And I just thought,
yeah,
wow, that's so sad. I need
yeah,
to write about hope. We need, like, human being needs to be hopeful and be expectant that something good can come out of a difficult situation. And I think with hope, it might prevent suicide or one attempting to take their life and stuff like that. So, yeah, it popped up in my head, and I feel like I should write about hope.
yeah,
Human being are passing through a lot of things out there. It's an uneasy, crazy world out there, and we need more message of hope to people.
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So a lot
I
of
look
those things are
forward to
more.
reading that.
That would be great, really. And I like the fact that you also mentioned that your book, I love your advice to the writers. I love you mentioning that it started as a 5 piece of paper, and I imagine you have an amazing book out there already. The courage it's also necessary in making this a reality. So that's an amazing advice, and I'm hoping that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Thank you for mentioning.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. And just in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview and would love to get a copy of Beneath the Surface, on what platform is it available on for purchase?
The best place to go is to Amazon. I think everybody goes to Amazon a lot,
Yeah.
but Amazon would be the best place to go.
Hmm.
Um, if anybody is more interested in what I am doing and what's coming, I have a website that is Annie Lynn, just like my name, writes,
Mm,
WRITES.com.
that's
And
great.
from there, it will be able to take you to Instagram and Facebook. And I think my children are going to help me do a TikTok this weekend.
Oh,
So we're getting into the TikTok world. So
that's great.
there are many places to find more information as well.
Yeah,
Um, and then follow up and see how these other books come about.
yeah. That's a great news. I'm excited about that, especially with your children helping you with the TikTok. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
That's beautiful.
I am really not very good at technology, so this is all blowing me away. And
Yeah,
the other night, my daughter's like, "Do that." So, so we've been scribbling down some ideas, and we're
yeah.
gonna start posting. So keep watching.
Yeah, that's great. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Annie Lane book directly on Amazon and also on other platform. So thank you
Yeah,
so much, Annie, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation around your work.
thank you. I'm so happy to be here talking with you.
It's my pleasure as well. Thank you for coming on.